Hi guys, it's Ryan here from the Peppermint Apes, and I'm joined with Sam, Chris and Lewis, and this is our very first podcast. So please subscribe to this channel if you're new. We're going to try and host a video every single month, but the very first video, Chris, I'll leave it over to you, my friend.
Well, thank you very much, Ryan. So the idea of doing these podcasts is just to sort of keep people interested and moving forward. So I think the first one we're going to do about is the history of the Peppermint Apes, which we think would be a good one to start off with. So, guys, how did the band start?
Cool, that's a good question, Chris. How did it start? Sometimes I forget. So 2008 is when officially the band started, but just before then, it sort of goes back to sort of a childhood. I grew up always watching my dad as a musician. He was in country bands and cover bands like Hedgehog and tribute bands like T-Rex. And I always kind of wanted to be in a band. And I just remember one particular year, my dad joined T-Rex and I was learning the bass. And basically on the back of those gigs... Basically bass. I joined this really good soul band called Split Decision. And there was a guy called Dave Thorpe on keyboards, Shannon Williams, the vocalist, 7 of us in total. Really, really good band. And we ended up, forming an originals band called Covalent, was doing some good stuff. Cut long story short, that band fizzled. We were quite young, and we were going to support T-Rex at the Towngate Theatre in Basildon. And that was going to be for my dad's last ever gig, really. He was sort of hanging up the bass, if you like, and starting to retire from the music world. And it wasn't to be with Covalent. And on the side, I was always writing songs acoustically. Yeah. And my dad sort of said to me, look, you're still going to do it. Maybe you could do it, yourself. I said, yeah, but I'm not really a front man. I'm a bass player in Covalent. He said, no, you write songs. So I did it. Well, Lou, was you at that gig at the Towngate?
Yeah, I was, yeah.
Was you?
Yeah, I was at your first gig, yeah.
How old would you have been then, would you say?
Oh, 17, 18?
17, yeah.
Around that sort of age. And
so for somebody of that age to be gigging already is, I think when I was 16, 17, obviously, I'm a lot younger than you guys, but to be gigging at that age is sort of it must sort of been a really sort of rewarding thing, especially at that, being younger.
It was quite daunting.
Yeah.
It was great because when you're playing the Towngate Theatre, it was a great show, but yeah, so we did that and went down really well. We had Zak, who was in Covalent.
Okay.
He played bongos for the night. Had a guy called Darren, who was playing bass. He was a guitarist as well. And one of my best friend, Ross, was playing guitar. And it went down so well that I thought, let's form a band out of this. Everyone kept saying, when are you going to do more gigs? But we weren't officially a band. It was just guys that I got together to do this slot. Now, at the time, Ross, if you see him play, he's phenomenal on guitar. He's incredible. He's really done well. But at that time, he was quite new to guitar. Yeah. I sort of said to him, because I was best friends with him at school and he was always into football and all that kind of stuff. And I just said to him, mate, why don't you be in a band with me? And he said, yeah, but I don't play anything.
and that's how most good rock bands
start. That's how it worked. I said, oh, surely you can learn the drums or something. Sorry, Sam. But
don't worry about an instrument.
Why do you do so easy?
I'm joking. But no, and he was going to be the lead singer and things like that. And then in the end, he started learning guitar and he picked it up really well. But at that time, I realised that I wanted to do something special. I was so focused. I wanted to try and get a record deal. My dad said he was going to manage us because he just finished playing. He wanted to take us to the next level. And at that point, Ross wasn't quite ready and some other guys that I was jamming with weren't ready at that point. So I had to audition people, kept Zak in the band, and we formed the Peppermint Apes. The first thing we had to do was think of a band name. And how we did that...
Yeah, I was going to say, because that is... Every band's struggle at the beginning is coming up with a name that actually catches people's attention. Because, I suppose of that era, you'd have had a lot of bands around, like the Cooks, the Arctic Monkeys, Franz Ferdinand.
It's an indie paradise.
Indie paradise, like you say. Yeah. So to come up with a name that's actually going to grab people's attention, and it is what you are. I suppose in the end of it, the name sort of defines your music and you as people. So. How did you actually come up with that name?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think in vogue at the time was Arctic Monkeys and the Pigeon Detectives and bands like that. And so we were thinking of random combinations because you try and be creative and think of a catchy name like the
usually comes out something like really cheesy though, doesn't it? Like,
or we thought
randombandgenerator.name.com.
That's exactly what we looked at.
Or you just pick an element off the periodic table.
Titanium.
Titanium.
Put a number after it or something.
But you think of names, or you think of a good one, like you think I like The Reason at the time, but then you realise so many bands called that. So in the end, my dad sat us down in the studio and said, "Guys, we're going to think of a name." And he literally had this whiteboard, and he put all these random combinations together, like some stupid names like the Crispy Kippers.
I remember that one. He's telling us that,
that was one of them, and there was just random things like Brown Velvets and things like that. Like, it just didn't make sense. But we saw Peppermint Apes, and we all kind of just looked at that and thought, that kind of works, you know. And it's one of those names where some people think it's ridiculous, but some people love it. It's a name, isn't it?
It does stand out, though, doesn't it? I mean, it's an unusual name.
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
you know, like moving to what we're doing now, which we'll get into later, but even when we've sort of gone off the back of booking gigs, you know, it grabs people's attention. They're asking, well, how'd you come up with that name? And, you know, what does that name mean? Oh, it's really interesting.
Always
I love
happens,
the names.
Yeah,
and it just, people's just reaction to it is so, it's organic almost. So it's a nice, I suppose, to have the good names.
Live music for you this morning. The Peppermint Apes are with us, and we just love the band's name. This is Ryan, lead singer here. Well,
it's hard to build a brand as well, isn't it? Like build a brand around a name that's catchy and that's good, and not something that you want to change a couple of years down the line. But the fact that you're able to set something up so early on.
Who was in that lineup though when the name was formed?
So we were doing a lot of auditions. So it was myself and Zak Ballinger. In the band, we had a guy called Darren, and we had a guy called Jason on the guitar. Very good style.
So was you still playing bass, or was you playing guitar then?
No, so I was in Covalent and I was playing bass. So we had Dave Thorpe on keys and me on bass. It was a really good sound. But with this, I wanted to sort of play guitar because I just thought as a frontman it made more sense to play guitar and sing. It's more acoustic I was playing then, from what I can remember, and the telly and everything. But no, it just worked, you know, playing guitar. And we had a guy called Jason, and he had a great look, you know, looked very sort of 60s looking, you know, really good like hairstyle. You know, my dad almost said you hide before you played a note. It was one of those kind of thing.
And he had a sick ES335 red. You would love it.
Yeah. There could have been something special about that little lineup. Actually, there was something good. There was a buzz. We had our first gig booked already. Literally, we organised. We had about 2 rehearsals, and my dad said, "I've booked you a gig at the Touchline."
I was there for that as well.
For the first gig, straight away, it was 100 miles an hour. We had a gig booked at the NEC in Birmingham, like for a guitar show kind of thing. It just all happened so quickly. My dad just gave it 100 miles an hour before we'd even sort of really sort of rehearsed a song. Yeah. It was just like there were so many bookings, which is great, you know. And yeah, there was, like I say, the Touchline was a really nice special first gig. We had Kuda Bucks supporting us at the time.
Yeah,
who played with you on Better the Bands and things like that.
Yeah, when I was like 14.
And Josh Smith, who we'll talk about, who's obviously part of the Apes, he was in Kuda Bucks at the time. They were a good little band, actually, good little rock and roll band. But so that was our first gig, and then on the back of that, that's when things started to sort of go to the next level a little bit, because my dad was talking to agents. You know, towards America, etc.
So I suppose at that point, what really was the vision that you was sort of, well, I mean, you and your dad, I suppose, if he was managing, what was the vision that was intended?
Imagine for you, being that young, you're probably just like flying by the seat of your pants and just like seeing where you end up, right?
Just wanting to play gigs and have a laugh.
Yeah.
Sort of.
I think for me, I mean, yeah, it all happened so quickly. But I was, 17, 18? You know, I was like most teenagers at that age that's getting a little bit of success, which we were at that time scale.
Was this the MySpace era as well?
Yeah. So we was doing quite well on MySpace. And
before my time, that was.
Was it really?
MySpace. Oh, it was just the tail end of it.
Oh, man, that's weird.
That's a long time.
You never learnt about your top friends and how much that meant in school.
I do remember Facebook, though, when
I'm out your top 3.
Do you remember Tom, the MySpace friend Tom? Everyone used to have.
Yeah, oh yeah, Tom was number 1.
Oh yeah, Tom, first MySpace friend. Yeah.
one of the first people.
I remember my first friend.
Yeah. I mean, I started Facebook. I think it was still like oh, you'd had all your best friends as family members for some reason.
Oh,
brother.
Yeah. Still on there now. Yeah.
But no, in answer to your question in terms of vision, I think to the top, mate. It might sound arrogant, but I really believed, and it's weird actually. I watch things now on YouTube, like the law of attraction. Like you attract what you believe and what you can visualize. And I generally believed that we were going to be the next best thing. I just visualized it every single day. People used to say to me, I used to work at Curry's at the time on the weekend, and people used to say to me, what are you going to do? Like, what's your plans? And everyone was talking about, I want to become an accountant, want to do this. And I was like, I'm going to be in a band. I'm in a band, and this is my career. And people used to look at me like I was a dick.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, probably I was a bit of a dick. But I really believed in going to the top.
It's a bit of a pipeline dream, isn't it? Because whenever you say to anyone, like, playing a band, first thing they say is, oh, you got a record contract, or you got albums and things like that. So yeah,
exactly, mate. And I wasn't humble at all at that age. I just wanted everything, I wanted to be the next Beatles. I just wanted to go to the top. And my dad, funnily enough, because a lot of musicians, a lot of parents are like, have a real job, do this. He was so supportive, and he was like, let's get you to the top. And it was slowly getting closer and closer to
because your dad had a musical background as well.
100%.
Obviously, so that probably really helped.
I suppose there was a massive element as well. I mean, if I was in a similar situation to you, there would be a part of me that I just really want to make my dad proud. And obviously, with him being so sort of respected within the sort of local music, not in say industry, but the community, it must have been sort of like, I'm doing this with my dad, I'm making him proud, and we're doing it together as like a father-son sort of thing as well. So that must have been a really rewarding...
100%. And to this day, actually, I don't think that's ever really left me, really, when I do a gig and he's in the audience. I think you guys sometimes feel like that, being managed by me.
Definitely.
He's the one person you kind of want to impress. It's one of those things.
Always want to speak to him. Yeah.
And you kind of think, has he liked it? Or have you done something? It's one of those things.
I mean, if he doesn't like a gig, I feel like I've let everyone down.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm the same. Yeah.
He'll certainly tell you, that's for sure.
But it's constructive, though.
Yeah.
That's the best thing. It's all constructive. So, and it just helps you improve, and that's why the Apes, like when I used to come watch you live when you were first together, it was like, wow, I've never seen a band like this before. I think because the discipline was there.
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it, as well? Because also, like you say, he's got so many years of musical experience at that particular point, and you're like 17, 18, so you're malleable. You can you can be shaped in a certain way, not detrimentally, but like in terms of instilling certain things that you wouldn't have as like a 17-year-old like in a garage somewhere.
No,
do you know what I
exactly.
mean? Like you get like that must have been really, really good as well, because it
gives you the experience that you haven't got at that age, and and it was great, and it was good fun. We was enjoying it, and there was always like radio shows and that wanted to speak to us and auditions for record labels. We were loving life at the time. We did an EP called the Miracle EP, and that got a lot of attention. And then I think things started to get realistic. Like they were talking about tours, America, and Jason at the time, and I completely understand and respect this. He was paying a mortgage, which I didn't really understand at that time. But
was he a little bit older then? I take it. How much?
He was early 20s.
Yeah,
paying for a mortgage. He'd just been promoted. He was a manager in a shop somewhere, and doing quite well for himself. And I think the tours and what was in front of us would have meant really that you'd lose your job, and he wasn't prepared to take that gamble, which I completely respect. And I think, like anyone, when you join a band, you kind of probably think that maybe a year, 2 years down the line, that's when good things will happen. But I think within 3 months, you weren't expecting to nearly get a record deal, which is where we were. And so sadly, Jason left the band, and he left on pretty good terms. It wasn't like, why are you leaving? It was sad at the time, but we completely understood. So that's when he left. But then we had to find the right replacement. At this point, Darren, who was playing bass and guitar.
I remember that because you used to switch, didn't you?
Yeah,
I remember seeing that at the touchline. Yeah.
Instruments a lot, but we had to find somebody. Now we were auditioning, trying to find people, and we did audition a lot of people.
So when you was auditioning at, was there sort of a deadline to get somebody in for the next step of the band? Was that coming up to the tour? Would you?
Sort of. We were talking to a record label at the time, Terry Scully, for Real Records.
Okay.
He was coming down, and there was kind of like a deadline because you could see that they wanted to do things.
Yeah.
but there wasn't like an official, it has to be done within 4 weeks or 6 weeks or an agenda, but we just wanted to find someone quickly, but we wanted the right person.
Yeah.
We were seeing people and, there were some good musicians but couldn't commit. And there were people that gave it the talk but weren't that great. So it was a mixture of people, really. But we found one person, and it was actually Lauren. She messaged Lewis Brown, who went to school with both of us. I didn't really know him at school, to be fair. He was a couple of years younger, but quite a cool lad at school.
Yeah.
He was always kind of like a ladies' man and all that kind of stuff. He was one of those kids that was the cool kid at school. And, and I remember that. I never really spoke to him, but I remember everyone sort of used to look at Lewis Brown, and if there was music events, he was always the guy playing the guitar, and all the girls used to want him, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was, and I was thinking, is he going to be a dick? Is he going to be a nice guy? But he was a really nice guy when he came in for the audition. I always remember he knocked on the door, because it was his audition, and I opened, and he had these massive sideburns, like these huge, like. And it was great. It was proper like 70s, and I was like, the first thing I said is, I love the sideburns, man. That's the first thing I said. And he went, cheers, dude, And he'd learnt the EP, he'd learnt Miracle to Me and No One Like Me, the guitar parts. But Darren wasn't too happy. I think he really wanted to play guitar. So we agreed that he'd play bass and guitar. And he came in, and that's what we started to do.
So
we was then a lineup and doing gigs and planning America.
So it was yourself, Lewis Brown, and Zak Ballinger then.
And Darren Owen.
And Darren as well then.
Yeah.
Okay.
My dad happened to arrange all the, the Texas, some of the gigs in New York City, some stuff in LA. So we had a long chat and we decided to continue. We were auditioning some guitarists, but it wasn't going to work in time. So basically, we decided to be a 3-piece. We wrote I wrote a song, Someone Like You, which ended up going on the album, which we'll talk about soon. But not the Adele song.
We'd be sitting in a mansion if you wrote that.
Plug.
Yeah.
Royalties, Adele.
No, but
So
but we went as a 3-piece, and obviously we weren't the full package. We were just 3 of us, and it wasn't really a tight 3-piece. We did the best we could, and we performed on TV shows. And I think you look at the footage, I think we sounded like a good band, but we were never going to take the world by storm. We could have done as a 4-piece or with another member, or if we had someone like yourself in at the time, if you was old enough then. It would have been great, but what do you do? So that really was painful. But put that aside, there are times when I look back on that and I think, what if we'd have gone as a 4-piece? Would we have been signed? Would it have changed the dynamics of the band? We'll never know. You'll never know. But park that now. The actual experience was fantastic. We bonded so well. We did stuff in the gigs in New York City. One of the gigs we were under 21, so we weren't allowed to be in the venue, but was that we had to wait outside and then go onto the stage and then get off and go. We couldn't wait and chill. We was on TV shows, and I remember when we was on Fox TV, the guy, sort of floor manager, said to me, "You nervous, kid?" And I was like, "A little bit." He said, "Well, you should be. There's thousands watching."
Cheers.
And before you go on,
Mic drop.
Yeah.
And she said when we went to Texas, we've only got one mic for the interview. Who's going to talk? And Zak and Lewis looked and said, "Ryan." I went, "Oh, okay." It's just me talking.
You kind of signed yourself up for that one, mate, didn't you?
Yeah. I'm number 1. That's what you get for being the front man.
But no, it was a really good tour, and we met some great people out there. We finally met with Jerry Sanders as well.
Yeah, legend.
I mean, he filmed a really good documentary, which at some point we'll probably post some of the clips on YouTube.
Because there's clips on YouTube of all the TV shows and interviews. Isn't
There
and
are,
things?
yeah. But I'd like to upload the documentary. I think at some point it'd be good to sort of I also did little vlog diaries as well.
Mm-hmm.
But a really good buzz, and I think again, New York, Texas, LA was fantastic.
Did you go to a steakhouse?
We did, funny enough.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm vegetarian.
I love this story. That's why I brought it up.
So the best thing is, I've gone in there, and this is in Texas, and so You know what's coming, don't you?
Yeah.
So we've sat down, and I've realised, like, my uncle's there, he loves his meat as well. So he was like, "I know a big T-bone, yeah," all that sort of stuff. I think that was Gary.
Yeah. He's like, what's the biggest steak you do?
Anyway, I've then said to the waitress, "Sorry, do you have anything for vegetarians?" And it was a bit like EastEnders, you know, when the music stops and everyone stares.
Yeah.
What the
What the hell is that?
Yeah. She said, "What?" I said, "Have you got anything for vegetarian?" She said, "Vegetarian?" I said, "I don't."
James Brown serving, yeah.
She said, "Yeah, we do chicken." I was like,
That's the Texas vegetarian cuisine.
Yeah.
So,
Chicken.
Instead of beef.
Yeah.
so I think I had leaves that night. Yeah.
Leaves.
I bet it cost you a fortune as well.
Everybody just went out the back and picked the grass off the floor, didn't they? Just forgot.
She went, did she take you out the back? She said, "We got some cows out here. They've got some grass they're grazing on.
Yeah.
You can help mow that."
I was like, "Go on then." We were supporting bands in New York City, and we were so cheeky. We had no instruments whatsoever, and we were supporting this metal band. We were sort of like a pop indie band, and we were supporting this death metal band.
Zak playing a 20p drum kit.
I'll always remember Zak, bless him. He went up to the drummer, and he said, "I said, Zak, you have to ask, because this is like a proper like beefy bloke.
Go on, Zak,
with like
ask him."
tattoos all down his arm and a massive big beard." And
Bet you
I
weren't a
said,
vegetarian.
"Zak, I said, can you just go up to him and ask to use his kit?" He went, "All right." I said, and Zak actually did it. He went up and said, "Excuse me, mate, can I have your kit?" And he went, "Yeah, man, you can use my an American accent." He said, "But you break my kit, I'll bust your balls."
Zak was playing with like feathers.
Yeah.
yeah.
But I
Got his
remember
brushes out. Yeah.
It's a jazz gig.
Ryan, you play guitar here, and we've got Zak, who's considered the chill guy on the drums, and Lewis is your everyday dude with sideburns. I like how you describe it there on the bass. All right, what are you guys going to play for us this morning?
We're going to start off with Someone Like You.
Someone Like You, the Peppermint Apes here in Austin on the morning show. Thank you, guys.
I was thinking of you when I was doing my time. Although I'm loving you, you are in my mind. It doesn't matter where you are, or what you're dreaming of, Oh, baby, when you hold me tight, it's the right. Say the words to comfort me, then you know she'll.
And that's when we sort of said to you, Lou, would you like to join? And I think you just said yes, didn't you?
yeah, it was a no-brainer. Yeah, because it was just so exciting.
So what year was that? Just say that you officially joined.
2011, I think it was 2010 or 2011.
Around that time,
Just
yeah.
left school.
Oh, college. Yeah, just finished.
Yeah, we
up
just
college.
finished college, didn't we?
Yeah. So it was in between that era kind of thing. Yeah. So we did loads, didn't we? Loads of rehearsals. We did some TV shows in Ireland, and we did like a show that was out of Middlesex Uni as well.
Yeah,
I
forgot about that.
Yeah, played everywhere in London. Like I say, gigged in France, which was wild for a 17-year-old. Joining a band, just being like, "Whoa, we're playing in another country. This is ridiculous."
Yeah.
So yeah, it was an unbelievable experience.
Yeah, absolutely, and it was good. And we obviously we had a vision. It was a good lineup. Myself, you, Zak Ballinger, Lewis Brown, and we did the "Be My Friend" video.
Yeah, in Pencat Studios.
Pencat
Milton Keynes.
Studios. And yeah, it was good. But I think at that point you came to a point where you had to leave the Apes. You want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah. Again, it was a weird time because again, at the time I was having like two parallel lives. I was basically in the band, and as we've said before, like we were rehearsing like at least 3 times a week, gigging each week on top of that. I was going to uni at the time. I didn't drive, so it was sort of like 5 hours worth of travel every day to and from uni, and it just all got a bit much, And we always worked really hard as a band, but there was sort of like external factors that were just kind of seeping their way in. And it just, the whole mixture just got too much for me in the end. And I just thought, look, I want to, if I had my way, I'd be able to just sort of spend all my time doing the band and nothing else. But, as you get a bit older and you see different career possibilities,
Responsibilities and things like
just
that.
life gets in the way, doesn't it? So it made it difficult. And I made a decision at the time.
And it was tough at the time.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
I know
yeah.
even you and I were best friends. We kind of had a mini tough time, didn't we, as friends
Yeah, of
at the
course you do,
time?
yeah.
It was tough, and I was gutted. I really was gutted, and but looking back on it, I understand why you had to leave. And then the next step, really, when you left as well, bearing in mind Zak Ballinger had been in the band from the beginning. I
Did
think,
Zak leave at the same time or before? I can't
yeah,
remember.
I think from Zak's perspective, I think he'd experienced a lot of lineups, and he just thought enough's enough.
Yeah.
But I sometimes, and I still love Zak to this day, and obviously he's still involved in the Apes. He comes in,
absolutely,
and we
yeah.
still want to get him involved.
Can we
but,
still gig with him?
but I do look back on that sometimes, and don't get me wrong, I know we can make it all glamorous. There were some bad sides to the Apes. There were the odd occasions where we, didn't always get on and feel like you get in bands.
It happens in every band.
everyone's-
though, doesn't
But-
it?
It's like a relationship,
Of course,
basically, isn't
of
it?
course it is. You
But-
spend so much time with each other as well.
And I get that. And I made some mistakes along the way. I hold my hands up. But what I will say is, you look back at the first 3 years when Zak did leave as an original member, we toured America. We did Amsterdam. We did the album. We did Radio 2 as well. And as with Dave, I forgot to mention that. Yeah, Radio 2.
Yeah.
And which is a really good, we did stuff on Sky TV. And then you leave from that. I mean, you look back on it, you think, wow, really?
It
We-
must have been.
what if we gave it another couple of
Yeah.
years at that time? But we had to get a new lineup. Now, Lewis at the time, he used to work at Allegro Music, and he had some good friends. He had a guy called James Fox, who's an amazing drummer, good all-round
Oh,
musician.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
He came down for an audition, and he was brilliant. And I auditioned guitarist. We found a guy called Shaw Marcus. He got the job. And then I said to Lewis, because he was always saying that he's always doing gigs with James and a guy called Luke on keyboards. I said, let's get Luke in the band. Let's get keyboard. And they came in, and it really did rock. It was a good lineup.
Recorded some brilliant
Amazing
songs as
vocals
well.
and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Harmony wise and things like that. Yeah.
It really did take it to the next level. If you think what we did with the other lineups, with yourself and America and the album, this then was like another level from a musicianship point of view. And I really thought, now this is it. This is a band that could go places. And we did great stuff. We did Live and Unsigned. And we got, we did so many rounds. We went to the Towngate Theatre. We won that. We went to Bedford. We won that. I also won Best Original Song in the competition. And then we got to the final, which was held at the O2. I think there were 66 bands that made it to the final. Bearing in mind it was across the whole UK. And I think we came fourth. So
Wow.
we did really
Didn't
well.
you get a best song?
Yeah, the one just before then.
Yeah.
just before the round before. Yeah, for Poor Little Rich Girl.
Mm.
But on the back of that, we did so many gigs like festivals. We were supporting Razorlight, Scouting for Girls. It was starting to really kick off again. And then I suppose, like you get with all bands, there were some politics involved. I won't go too in depth with it.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was really deflated. Because that was a big lineup. That was a really good. The Apes could have gone places, and technically they were then going to form another band. I don't know if they're still going now. They were doing it for a little while. They were going to do a band, and I didn't have a band now. It was like, I still had the name, the Peppermint Apes, because I copyrighted it.
Yeah.
Still had the management company there, but at the end of the day, I had no band members. So for a while, I decided to sort of call it quits. I never officially said the Apes was over, but I had no motivation.
No, because I suppose you've been knocked back so many times. You probably
was
just
tough.
at that point you just probably think to yourself, I just need, I need to regain what this is.
Yeah.
What you doing?
Take me by the hand and say it's alright and understand. 'Cause I ain't got nothing to say, the secret's out. 'Cause when I look in your eyes, it's alright. Oh, the secret's out. Oh, the secret's out. I ain't got nothing to hide, got nothing to change anymore. And you've got nothing to say, now the secret's out.
Lewis, what was you doing at that point?
Yeah, so again, I was having that sort of point in my life where most guitar players and musicians do, where you sort of discover what you like and what you want to play. And I absolutely loved doing everything sort of pop and pop rock related, but I sort of went to that proper alternative rock, almost heavy metal side of things, and just wanted to be creative and almost progressive. And me and my cousin Ross were writing a lot of stuff together. And Shannon, who was the previous singer in Ryan's band in Covalent when you were sort of growing up, she'd been in touch with Ross. I think it might have been through you, actually.
Yeah.
Put him in touch.
I was talking to Shannon, and she was moving back. Was it from Brighton or somewhere? I
Somewhere
can't remember.
coastal.
And she said, I'd love to get involved in a band, and I know you was jamming with Ross, and sort of hooked you guys up, and the rest they say is geography.
Yeah, and it was really cool because I remember that we literally met. Yeah, God. We met in a pub and literally just up the road from where Ross lived, and we literally all went back to his, started jamming, and we literally wrote a song then and there, and we just knew something clicked.
And you was involved in that as well, weren't you, Sam?
Yeah.
He got the call.
Well, yeah, I was at the time. I was playing like a metal band called Experience the Fall, and that was my best friend at
It's
the
like
time.
such a metal band.
It is absolutely my best friend. Dan. We was playing in the band together. He jumped on the bass and I went on the drums. But I was playing in that band and nothing was really progressing.
Yeah.
So I kind of started becoming a bit demoralised as well. I was starting to play drums less, and then I got a phone call from Ross just saying, "Look, Shannon, Lewis, and myself, we're going to be forming a band. It's going to be a bit out there, a bit funky. Do you fancy coming along?" So literally, I think I went round to Shannon's house with my electric drum kit, plopped it in the living room floor, and Lewis and Ross were on acoustic guitars, and we just literally, they said, right, here's a song. And I think the first one we played was Tantrum, which was an old Covalent song, I think, and Shannon knew the words, and I made up a drum beat, and bang, off we went.
Yeah.
And that was it. It just gelled, didn't it?
It was this really special band. I'm really proud of what we achieved in
Absolutely,
that band.
yeah.
Like we literally would get together at Sam's studio when he was still at home, like your parents, and we would literally have a song every week off every rehearsal.
Just writing all the time, constantly writing. I mean, when we did eventually rehearse at Basildon Studios, we wrote the song Butterfly in 20 minutes. Someone came in to watch us play. It was like an agent or something, and we were so buzzed. We wrote the song in 20 minutes, a full song.
That was a good
tune. It was brilliant.
He was a good band. He was a good band. I liked
we
you guys.
weren't polished. We were still raw and rough, but I think we had something. If you look at, we were only a band for about 2 years, but if you look at the breadth of the stuff that we did in that time, we went from the more funky rock stuff, like the Covalent influence stuff, to like more standard rock. Then we sort of went to almost like progressive parts, not like progressive metal, but just odd time signatures. Like we like it was quite a. I don't know why I'm doing this with my hands, but like a duck, a seal,
like a butterfly.
Yeah. Hey. Yeah. But yeah, like we just really clicked as people.
We'd have like an alternative chorus, and it would just go into like a jazzy verse, just. And we was able to pull it off. It was really, and Shannon's vocal range was incredible. She could just sing anything, and it was just brilliant. It was such a good band.
I think it's very rare to work with two singers that have an ability like you and Shannon to be able to hear something and write something brilliant. It's a real talent to have that.
I think that's how I wrote the Warrior. I think it was.
Yeah, that was like
Shannon's went, "I've got a thing in my head." Lewis and Ross just put it on guitar, and that was it.
I learned a lot from Shannon, and just the natural melody she had. And if there's one thing people say about my songwriting is that, my songs might not always be great or they might not be sophisticated, but I usually try and work on good melody. But Shannon's got this ability where you can just play a few chords and she's got great lyrics.
Oh, she has a book. She's got a book full of lyrics.
I just, to this day, I do not know how she does it.
Yeah. But with pretty strange things, we went into the studio over in Chelsea where we've done our all-day rehearsal over at Card Trick, and we recorded in 2 days a little 5-track EP, the Tantrum EP. And yeah, it was really good for what it was. It was really, really good. And it got us a tour with our friend, me and Lewis, our mate Joe Williams, who we went to school with. He was playing bass in a man called Johnny Get the Gun. And they heard the EP and said, "Look, we're going to be doing a 2-week tour. Do you want to come on it for a week?" It was like, absolutely. So where we went to Leeds, didn't we?
Oxford, London.
And Leeds, yeah. Leeds, Oxford and London we went to. And so we basically north down to south.
Yeah.
It was only 3 gigs, but it was absolutely amazing.
Great venue, O2 Academies, the proper ones in Oxford.
I remember seeing the vlog diaries you did. It was really
it was just wild because we were so young and we just like all together in a van, and it was like the sort of kids rock and roll dream.
I remember watching it thinking, oh, I miss all this.
Before you wish that you